Welcome to Inspired Living with Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector. Every Wednesday, Marc, along with his special guests, will explore thought-provoking topics and ideas that promote creativity, self-help, healing, happiness, and well-being to inspire you on your spiritual journey. Each week, Marc will discuss different paths to achieving a more spiritual, balanced, happy, and healthy lifestyle. Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual. Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. Marc is a tested, certified, and professional spiritual medium, metaphysical teacher, healer, and spiritual advisor with a spiritual practice based in Seattle, Washington. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
And you are the inspired and the inspiration. So let's be inspired, let's inspire others, and let's inspire before we expire. Welcome to Inspired Living, where every moment is an opportunity to ignite your passion and your curiosities and embrace the many mysteries, phenomenons, the unknown, the ordinary, and yes, the extraordinary. I'm your host, Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, here with you yet again for what I like to call soul adventures, and an inspiring episode to explore, discuss, and discover the many diamonds within each and every one of us and the many hidden gems that have yet to be revealed to us and the world. I'm thrilled to have you join us today as we embark on a journey of inspiration, motivation, and transformation. Whether you're tuning in from the comfort of your home, if you're on the road, or wherever life takes you, this show is designed to uplift your spirit and empower your dreams. Inspired Living is all about fostering a supportive and empowering community. Each episode will highlight incredible guests who have overcome challenges, pursued their passions, and make a positive impact in their respected fields and our amazing and beautiful world. The journey matters, and we want to celebrate your victories, no matter how big or how small. Together, we can cultivate a mindset of possibility and unlock the doors to our dreams. Inspired listeners can expect engaging discussions, thought-provoking questions, and actionable steps to manifest inspiration into your reality. And of course, we always want to give a big inspired shout out and thank you to all of our inspired listeners from around the globe, the universe, and beyond. The team and I are always so very humbled and grateful to you for listening, downloading, subscribing, leaving reviews, and voting to make Inspired Living not only a best inspirational show, but also a best spiritual show to follow and listen to as referenced by FeedSpot. So we really appreciate it, and we really appreciate you. If you have not yet subscribed, liked, or followed the show, there's always time to do so over on our main social media platforms, over on our Facebook community. Just look for Inspired Living Radio and Podcasts. You can join the global community over there. You can also follow us over on Instagram, Blue Sky, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Just look for the handle Inspired for Us. That's the number 4, Inspired for Us. And of course, always over on our YouTube channel, Inspired Living Radio. And we also stream through Audible and wherever you get your favorite podcast from. So let's get ready to be inspired, uplifted, encouraged, and motivated, because the best is always yet to come. So let's go prospecting, shall we? Today we're welcoming to the show for the first time Miss Ali Dalsimer. She is an award-winning author and motivational speaker. She holds degrees in English and psychology from the University of Richmond and a master's in public policy from Georgetown University. During her 30-year environmental career, Ali received numerous awards for her contributions to conserving our nation's natural heritage. Love that. She also authored and co-authored more than 50 articles, reports, book chapters, and brochures. In 2022, Ali ran for the U.S. Congress, bringing her passion for public service to the forefront. And as a speaker, Ali helps people going through challenges and changes to see how worthy and they truly are, giving them the confidence to reach their full potential. When she's not writing, speaking, or coaching, Ali enjoys reading, spending time outdoors, and making memories with her 2 amazing kids and her chubby rescue cat, Puma. If you want to learn more about today's guest, you can go to alidalsimer.com. Her write-up is also posted over on Om Times Radio and all of our social media platforms. And I want to just, before we jump into this, Ali, I wanted just to read a little bit about this book, how this book can empower you. One, it can shed the burden of perfectionism and embrace your authentic self. I think we all could work on that. Navigate life's inevitable ups and downs with resilience and grace. And I think right now there's a lot of ups and downs going on in consciousness in our society. And of course, cultivating self-compassion, the most powerful form of love, and uncover the beauty and strength that lie within the ordinary. So, Ali, welcome to Inspired Living. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your own personal soul adventures, your new book, and we're going to be talking about her new book here in just a second. But thanks for coming on and having this chat with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to our discussion for sure.
Yeah, so let's talk about your new book. It's okay not to be fabulous every day. So tell us a little bit about this, how this book started to come into manifestation and into my reality to be able to read such an inspiring book.
Right. Well, it's a little bit of a long story, as most journeys are, journeys to self-discovery, which is the subtitle of the book. It's a journey to self-discovery, and I really am on that journey, like so many of us. It really started in 2019, late 2019, when my job was eliminated. I was managing the Defense Department's Natural Resources Program from headquarters level, and that job was basically deemed unnecessary by the then administration. And I found myself kind of at loose ends, right? 30-year career sort of gone overnight. I took the summer and spent it with my kids rather than just jump right back into the workforce. And then we had the pandemic. I started my own business. The pandemic hit about 3 months later. My business went kaput. I ended up running for Congress because my son basically encouraged me to. There was a lot going on in the world with, people really struggling at that time, as I'm sure we all remember. And although I didn't win the seat, I was able to really make some changes in our district and in terms of shifting the policy of the incumbent who I ran against. And the whole experience was really life-changing. While I was running for office, not only was I trying to, be there for my kids, especially my daughter who was still in high school, but my mother became very ill, and it turned out to be terminally ill, and I ended up becoming her full-time caregiver. So, I was sort of working on office stuff and taking breaks to help her with, feeding and bathing, and we did rehabilitation and recuperation, and prior to that, our house flooded twice. Once the hot water heater flooded, and then once the main pipe, we have a little slab home, and the main pipe burst, and we ended up moving out for a month while they did the repairs. Anyway, my mother ended up passing, and I couldn't deal with it at the time because I was in the middle of this campaign. It was February, and it was whatever. Anyway, fast forward to the fall, and I find myself alone for the first time in decades. My husband had passed a few years back. My mother had passed. My kids were both off at school, and I literally was lying in bed wondering, why do I need to get out of bed today? There's nothing for me. My business failed. I'm not in office. Nobody needs me to do anything for them. And that was a really I'm not sure what the word is, but it was a really eye-opening moment. Like, I was like, what is my purpose in life? What is there to do? Fortunately, my cat was hungry, so that actually did get me out of bed, because I'm not sure I would have otherwise. And I just decided to reframe things for myself. I'd been beating myself up about not getting work done, not going through my mom's things, all this stuff. And I thought, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. I don't have to be all that every day. And I talk about it in the book. I made soup, I washed my sheets, and I played with a cat, and I just watched movies. And instead of berating myself, I congratulated myself for accomplishing something, because that was all I was capable of in that moment. And you know what? That really is okay. So often we put so much pressure on ourselves to do and be and say and whatever. And that was the beginning of my journey. And I thought, you know what? I need to help share this with my kids. And so I had started after my husband passed, I had started a book of life advice for them. And I went back and I dug it out, and I just started writing. And of course, as with so many people who write these types of books, the process of that is very cathartic and self-healing. And I ended up sending it to them. They were the ones who actually encouraged me to publish it. I had no intent of publishing this book originally, but they ended up sharing it with friends and whatever. Anyway, fast forward to right now, to this moment, and it's out there. And I just this morning had someone send me an email saying that they really enjoyed the book and it spoke to them and it helped them find the grace to be kind to themselves. And I thought, oh, that's just like the best, right? That's just the best. So that's how it came to be in front of you today.
And for us to talk to our inspired listeners all around the globe. So I love it. And I love the journey. And, big shout out to the rescue cat Puma who got you out of bed, because who knows, right? If you didn't have to feed Puma, then we might not be having this conversation. One thing leads to the other, right? But I can definitely relate and understand what you're saying. That last year my federal career as well came to an end after 23 years, and I retired early, and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? And so now we get to do the things that we love, and sometimes I always tell my listeners, take the time to disconnect so you can make that room and that time to reconnect, reconnect to write, reconnect to nature. I just came back from 3 days out in the Olympic rainforest, connecting to nature, which is our first home. And, the original Wi-Fi that we talk about. And sometimes that's needed, and you need to do that in a path of being alone. Because again, like you said, your kids are at school, your husband had previously passed into spirit along with your mom, and you didn't have a job, the pandemic, right? It almost sounds like a country western song, right? So it's like these things, help us to understand who we are, the higher self approach. And some call it the awakening, some call it the a soul quest or a vision quest. And so I love that for you, because what it did is it inspired you to write this wonderful book. It's okay not to be fabulous every day, a journey to self-discovery. So, and one of the things that I love about your journey, Ali, is you talk about how you help people embrace their inner fabulosity so they can maximize their personal potentials. Let's talk about that. What's some ways that folks can maximize their personal potentials after picking up this book?
Well, the biggest thing anyone can do is acknowledge that they are worthy and their dreams are worthwhile. I feel like too often, too many of us push aside our own aspirations for whatever the reason. We have people who are what I call naysayers, who don't believe in us or don't believe in our dream and who undermine our confidence. Or we have, we especially women, we tend to suppress our own needs and desires so that we can support others. And too often, we find ourselves 30 years down the road, and it's like, oh, well, crap, I didn't do this. I wanted to do this. And we're filled with regrets. And I just really believe that if we listen to ourselves, if we lean into self-love and self-listening, and that's a big step, is learning, too many people don't even like themselves, let alone love themselves. So really learning to accept who you are, learning to embrace those, what I call perfect imperfections, because no one is perfect. So many people try to be perfect, and it's not only a wasted effort, it's counterproductive, because what makes us truly unique and special is that set of flaws that makes us who we are. And surrounding ourselves with people who uplift us instead of put us down, and really just listen to ourselves. If we're in a situation and we're starting to feel bad in some way, really turning in, why are we feeling bad in this place or with these people? And then take action to change it. And also really try to look at that glass half full. It sounds so cliche, Mark. I know it does, right? But, you talk about it as well. And you have to look at the half full glass, at the positive side, because, there's just so much joy and beauty in the life, in our lives, that we too often discount. And I think once we do it, all those things, it sounds like a lot, but it's not. One thing leads to another in a stepwise fashion. But once we are able to accept ourselves, learn to like ourselves, love ourselves, surround ourselves with people who uplift us, view life through a more positive lens, grace ourselves the kindness to take our own journeys, not compare ourselves to other people, then we can discover what that spark is within us, what it is that truly brings us passion at a deep and meaningful level, and then we can pursue it. You know, we can't go from A to C without going through all of the B's in the middle.
Right, right. And I like how you said spark. For my philosophy and what I teach is about the diamond within, right? It's because diamonds we know are created under extreme pressures, and it's within the darkness that piece of once coal gets compressed into a beautiful diamond that can reveal itself at due time. And I think one of the things that I really took away from this book is the perfectionism, because of the first half of my life I was, I served in the Coast Guard and then as a first responder, and so you were always developing that system of perfectionists, because you had to be perfect at what you did. And over time, I learned to realize that don't let perfection be the enemy of the good and what you're trying to do. And it does take that courage to show up and take that leap of faith. But another thing that I always remind my listeners is fail often and fail daily in today's society. And what I mean by that, the FAIL is an acronym for first attempt in learning, because we're all here to learn in this school of life, if you will. And so embrace your authentic self like you talk about, and don't let that perfectionist be the enemy of what good you're trying to do for today, the present moment.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, you talk about the hidden gems, and I think that that's what I mean by inner fabulosity. It's that sparkling beauty that is unique to each of us and is within each of us that we really need to tap into in whatever way works for us, because everybody's able to do that in their own way. But yeah, I absolutely agree. And sometimes, it does take that hardship to form that diamond. And we all unfortunately suffer those hardships. We all experience grief and loss and fear and confusion, and learning from those things is really, I think, one of the first things we can do to try to move ahead.
Yeah, 100%. It's reframing how you look at things, right? Like the word fear. There's a lot of fear-based energy in the world today, and I always remind my students and my listeners, take that fear. Again, I love acronyms. You can tell I had a background in medicine for 25 years. We always work with acronyms, but I applied that to the spiritual concept, and that fear is false evidence appearing real. Reframe it, face everything, and rise. And when you have those eyes and you can look at it from that perspective, yeah, it might be scary, it might be the unknown, but when you approach that fear with a new set of eyes, it can really make a difference for your journey and what you're trying to do, or where you're trying to go, or what you're trying to change. And I love the opening of the book, because you talk about a person who is truly satisfied with life is rich in all ways that matter. And then you go on to say, every one of us, including you, deserves to live a joy-filled and successful life, excited by the possibilities of an abundant future. And I love that, because I always have to remind myself, always focus on the good that is coming our way, because we're really good, like you said a few minutes ago, we're really great at self-sabotage and putting ourselves down, and we're not worthy enough, and we don't give ourselves enough grace. And even the half glass format, you talked about having a half glass half full. I remember in a prior life in my Coast Guard days, I used to work with a guy, and he was one of the most negative guys I'd ever met. And I'd always tell him, hey, look at it like the glass is half full. And he'd say, hey, I never even got a glass. And it's just like, well, okay, I guess we got to start somewhere, But it's, it is the truth that you deserve to live a happy and fulfilling life, where you can embrace your dreams as your reality. And that's why we're talking today. Your book, my show, we come together and we bring out the diamonds, we bring out the sparkle. But you're right, that struggle is real. And sometimes it's not sometimes, every time it's the struggle that will help you to overcome and persevere. An old sailor's statement was, you can't build your sailor's legs if you're always on calm seas. You have to go through those storms to develop your sea legs, if you will. Or let's even put it into the context of nature. What the caterpillar calls the end of the world goes through a whole liquid protein goo package of the metamorphosis, and then emerges as the butterfly, and what the butterfly calls a whole new perspective, right? So how long, Ali, did it take you to write this book, get it kind of all your thoughts on paper, pull it all together? Because you said you didn't really have the intent to publish. This was more kind of a journal writing for you that just kind of metamorphose, to use that term of the butterfly,
Yeah.
metamorphose in what we're talking about today?
Yeah, it wasn't so much a journal writing as it really was meant as life advice for my kids. I really was trying to give them the guidance.
Okay.
And it took, if you go from the very first start to the end, it was years and years, because I originally started it after their father died. And he died. We buried him the Saturday before my daughter transitioned from elementary to middle school, and my son transitioned from middle to high school. So it was a turbulent time for them, really, really difficult. And he had been sick for a while, but he ended up passing much more quickly than we anticipated, and it was pretty devastating. So I was writing this because they didn't have a dad. So I was trying to give them some life advice to help them navigate what I knew would be a challenging time as they continue to grow. And then I set it aside for years. I got extremely busy. I was, busy with whatever, softball, baseball, football, I don't know, plays, concerts, choir, not to mention, working whatever, 50 hours a week and
Right.
My mother was actually blind, so I was also, caring for her as well at the time. But back to it, it probably took me maybe not that long, actually, maybe 3 or 4 months, but to publish it took longer. Like, that was a long decision.
Oh yeah.
Because the reality is, Mark, and I'm sure you saw this, but I'm I've always been a very private person, and I'm very open in this book. I share a lot of very personal things, from my own feelings and emotions to personal stories, things that I never, ever shared in my life, because I was just not someone who did that. I was, raised to be, just be quiet, stiff upper lip and all that kind of stuff, and you don't ask for help. And
societal pressures.
Yeah. It's my Scottish heritage, I think. But very self-sufficient.
DNA too, so.
Yeah. But so I lay myself wide open emotionally and psychologically in this book. So deciding to put it out there for public consumption, that took strength, that took bravery, and it took a long time to make that decision. That was not something I jumped into lightly. But I'm glad that I did. I'm glad it's out there, and having it out there has actually propelled me along my own journey, because in talking about these things and in sharing them, I've really connected with other people and realized that while I was aware that other people went through these things, it hadn't really, the magnitude of how ubiquitous these struggles are for us all is. So it's what I think of it as a win-win. My book has helped a few people, and I in turn have been helped a great deal to really become a much happier, more fulfilled person, and discover my own hidden gems. So it took a long time, and yet the writing of it didn't take long, if that makes sense. The longest part, actually, once I did decide to publish, was in cutting it down. It was originally a whole lot longer, but it was really redundant. So, I mean, the nuggets all came from stickies that were on my kitchen cabinet that I lived, that I looked at every day as my life advice, and a lot of them are overlapping, as these inspirational quotes often are. So the hardest part was going through and reducing it by about 40%, so that it wasn't repetitive and boring.
Well, that adage is true, right? Sometimes less is more, and getting to the point, and to include within that struggle. The struggle is not just life itself. Life itself, just being born, incarnated into physical form, is a struggle, and we have our struggles with careers, relationships, and I believe that grief is a big part of that as well. Honoring our grief, and honoring those that they passed on, but I always say live, die, live again, and realizing that we need to honor our grief and live for those that are no longer with us physically, but very much around us spiritually. And I always remind my listeners, just because you don't see it with the physical eye does not mean it is not around you. So Yeah, I love that, and thank you for sharing that, and very powerful stuff. So we're gonna, I think this would be a good stopping point to go to our first break because I want to end this part of this show on a very positive because we're gonna get into talking about the barriers that we face, the naysayers, and all of the damage that can be done. So we're gonna be right back with our special guest today, Ali Dalsimer, talking about her book, "It's Okay Not to Be Fabulous Every Day: A Journey to Self-Discovery." We'll be right back. This is Inspired Living.
The future of internet radio is here. Om Times Radio, IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
One planet, 7.3 billion people. Only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us, the spiritual world, and what is unseen, along with your own personal soul adventure? Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for. Internationally known as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Marc's work as a metaphysical teacher, medical instructor, radio show host, inspirational writer, and hiking guide are here to help you on a journey of self-discovery, healing, inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream. Dare to explore. Dare to live. For more information on Marc's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marclainhart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for
summer break because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing a job
and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org, brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
All right, inspired listeners, welcome back. Welcome back. We have our special guest today, Ali Dalsimer, talking about her new book, "It's Okay Not to Be Fabulous Every Day: A Journey to Self-Discovery." If you want to learn more about today's conversation or today's show, you can again go to our social media platforms. You can also visit alidalsimer.com to learn more, to get the book. And again, we've got all of this content out on our social media pages with links if you want to check this out and go a little bit deeper in the prospecting of your own spiritual journey and self-discovery. So, Ali, I wanted to pause because I felt like we left that at a very positive note, because we're going to talk a little bit, with the positive, we've got to have the duality and balance of negativity, right? And there's a lot of negativity in today's world. And there's a lot of barriers that we face. And you talk about in the book the naysayers that do the most damage. Constant negative, works like a drip, drip, drip. And it's funny because I actually use that concept a lot. The power of water over time, that drip, 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 can actually create negative, deep, lasting impressions, convincing us that we can't succeed. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think that's, you're exactly right. And that's maybe why it's such a powerful image that we both used. Because the constant small drips really do have a cumulative impact. Look at the Grand Canyon for bigger example.
Right.
But yeah, it's insidious, right? Because it's so small. Each comment, you just brush it off. It doesn't seem like much, but it's insidious in that it keeps adding and adding and adding. And whether you're taking positive or negative steps, I'm not sure negative is the right one, but whether you're moving forward in a positive direction or kind of stagnating and not moving forward, every little increment might seem inconsequential, but cumulatively, they can really have a profound impact. And that's why I think the naysayers are such a big thing. But I'm also a big believer in, obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off the goal. And we have to make these conscious decisions. But we can't do that until we actually are aware of the negative influences in our life. That awareness is the first step, which is why I mentioned before about if you're in a place or a situation or with someone and you start to feel bad in some way, really tuning into your own inner sense of balance and peace and harmony and recognizing when that's out of whack. That's really, I think, the very first step people need to take, because like you said, there's just so much negativity. There's so much hate and violence, and it's just so, it's devastating and destructive, and just, I don't know. I personally think it's so unnecessary. I think people who are filled with hate and who destroy are unhappy. They're just unhappy at their core, and they're lashing out at other people.
Yeah,
unfortunately, it impacts us all.
Yeah, it does, and it's true. There's a lot of unhappy people, and they want to, that old, misery loves company, right? And so, for you listeners out there, go check this book out, dive in, because part of the courage and the transformation to know thyself. We always hear about to know thyself, but what does that truly mean, right? It takes a lot of surrender. It takes a lot of grace. It takes a lot of courage to find one's authentic self. Because when you move into that space, when you get rid of that negative stuff, Allie, that you're talking about, and we create space, right? If we're always just holding on to that negative or being influenced by that, letting go of that allows us to make room for ourselves. And sometimes it's that lonely path, that path of loneliness, so we can actually listen in the silence and actually understand who we are in this world. And part of being authentic, to know thyself, is not worrying about other people's opinions. I always say, there's a lot of opinions out there, especially through social media. In my journey of, before computers, before internet, before social media, and after, there's a lot of negative that can be, posted on a post or the media. And it's just like, when you find your authentic self, the opinions are like eyebrows and elbows, and almost every person on the planet has one or both of those, right? And so, for the listeners out there, find yourself with, books like this. Find yourself with teachers that inspire you, or mentors, or enroll in things that will help you to understand the journey of knowing thyself and transforming through that, because there is a great transformation that will take place, and that's very important. But also give yourself time and patience and grace along the journey. Eckhart Tolle always talks about and teaches on the greatest agent for change is awareness to the change. And even Dr. Wayne Dyer talked all the time. I've been listening to these guys for years, and Dr. Wayne Dyer, who's in the spirit world now, he always, one of the first concepts for my journey to know myself was, when you change the way you look at things and reframe it, the things that you look at do start to change. So again, it's it's not easy, but that's why we do these shows. That's why Allie has written these books. And you talk about in the book, it's the real world, which means conforming to societal norms and parental and peer expectations. Some of this this negativity is influenced by how we're raised, our learned system of behaviors, our education system. Maybe it's a religious system. Sometimes you have to change that and let that all go. So you talk about defining success on your own terms. Success is not about meeting societal expectations. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so for me, I define success as that which brings me joy and satisfies whatever I want to achieve. It means being happy with who I am and what I'm doing and who I'm doing it with. And sometimes it does mean that you have to distance yourself. It's not always possible to completely remove yourself, but Sometimes you have
Right.
to distance yourself from people who are very close, and that can be a challenge. One of the questions I used to get quite a lot was, well, what if the person who's the most negative in my life is my parent? Well, that's a toughie, right? But, there is a way to remove yourself by not sharing, the things that are the most intimate, personal details about yourself and your desires, your passions. You're not going to benefit yourself by sharing your deepest, darkest desires with people who don't support you. So you can interact in as much as you need to, but there's a way to protect yourself a little bit. Because we have to be practical, right? You can say, oh, be
Right.
positive, do this.
Right.
But
Right.
practically speaking, you have to take some very real steps in very real situations. And sometimes that means that if you have a parent or a loved one or someone who is putting you down all the time, that you simply stop sharing that part of yourself, that deep
Right.
inner part of yourself. That doesn't mean you don't still go to Sunday dinner or whatever. But you talk about current events, whatever, the weather. And that's a protective mechanism that I think we all need when we are recovering and trying to grow and build our own self-esteem and our sense of self-worth. And another thing that I think we're all too quick to do is to, it's the negativity bias, right? So 10 people tell you you're wonderful, one person say you stink, and you're like, oh, I stink, right? So, that's where our brains are hardwired for that, and it's hard to overcome. And one of the things that I always recommend is ask yourself, do you value and respect that person's opinion, right? So if you have someone who's like, well, I think you did a crappy job on this, ask yourself, is that person someone whose opinion you value? Is that someone who, if they hadn't come to you, would you have gone to that person and asked their opinion, asked their advice, asked their input? And I got to tell you, almost universally, the answer to that one is no. It's not. So why give their opinion equal credence to those whose opinions you value, who you would go to for advice or input on whatever aspect of your journey you were on? And I think it's really, I'm all about the practical, right? I feel like it's really great to say, be positive, go forth, do good, be happy. It's a whole nother thing to actually figure out how to get from point A to point B. So I really think it's important that we understand the tools that are available and grace ourselves the patience and kindness to take those individual steps, because no one can flip a well, maybe somebody can, but I don't know anybody who can flip a switch and be like, yes, everything's great, I'm going to achieve my dreams now, because we have spent years and years some of us being beaten down and told we can't. And to try to get to the we can, it takes time and it takes effort. The analogy I like to use is, people who want to lose weight, right? People always be like, I want to lose 10 pounds. And they're like, okay, great, lose 10 pounds. Okay, well, how do you do that, right? You have to cut your calories, you've got to increase your physical activity, whatever. And also, you're not going to see results in a week. You're not going to see results probably in a month. You'll see some results, but how long did it take you to gain that weight? You didn't gain that weight in a week.
Right.
So you have to, I think we're, and this goes back to my title. It's okay. It is okay not to be fabulous every day. It's okay to grace yourself a little kindness. It's okay to grace yourself patience. It's okay to distance yourself from people who are negative and who bring you down. It's okay not to be in situations that make you feel bad. It's okay to say no. Too many of us spend our time figuring out how to get to yes, and when sometimes the reality is no is the perfectly acceptable and appropriate answer for a situation.
Yeah, and as you were saying, just well said, especially for the listeners out there, a lot of the great past writers from Marcus Aurelius to Plato, they always talked about in this world, because this world is filled with opinions. People want to give their conscious bias or their negative bias, and it's, they always wrote about the only way to not be judged in life is not to do anything, say anything or be anything. But you're so right. We do something that benefits the greater good for 10 people, and then we give so much credence and weight to that one person that always will have. And there's always going to be one. There's always going to be that naysayer, that pundit, that critic. And it's just like, why do we give them so much, credence to that one opinion when we just helped 10 other people? And that's a philosophy from, ancient history, very smart, wise people from our past that reminds us that, yeah, you're going to be judged. And that's part of your authentic self, right? To step into who you truly are, not worrying about what other people think or say of you, and know that you're moving forward. And another, and you'll probably agree with this, Ali, I found to be in the present moment to be very, very powerful, because that's the only thing that's ever guaranteed in life is the present moment, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but yet we put so much time and energy thinking about what we didn't do, what we hope to do for tomorrow. And there's many tools that can help you, with this journey, from breath work to getting out in nature to meditation to maybe a community that embraces unity to help you through the daily struggle. But being aware to the present moment is so very, very powerful. And, and like you said, you talk about this in the book, the boundaries are crucial for your emotional well being. The boundaries that we have in society, there's boundaries in nature. Everywhere you look, there are boundaries, from flying on an airplane to getting on a ship. And sometimes those boundaries can be very close to the heart, whether it's a relationship, parents, family, friends, and sometimes you just have to love them from a distance, and that's okay too, right? But learning to say no, which I've always, I love to use acronyms. No for me is next opportunity. And when people say it's impossible, I'm like, really? Well, if you break the word apart, it actually breaks down to I'm possible, or I'm possible, or even take it one step. I'm depression. Oh, it's so negative. It's like, well, if we break the word depression down, it means I pressed on. Rearrange the letters, I pressed on, right? So it's all about reframing the mind, but do it in the present moment, and stop. You write about this in the book. Stop comparing yourself to others. Your path is unique. Your path is authentic. And what we're doing today, Ali, is we are raising the tide that lifts all ships. But there's always going to be one person that listens to the show or reads your book and goes, oh, I didn't agree with that. That was, go to that negative energy. It's like, no, rising tides lift all ships. I love that you put that in the book, because I say that all the time with my background, from my former life in the Coast Guard. And there is truth to that, but there's always going to be that one little dinghy out there, that one little boat that refuses to be lifted by the tide. So,
Right.
And you talk about the book stripping away that fluff and the redundancies and focusing on the heart of self-discovery. Let's talk about self-discovery, because during your journey, after everything you've shared with us today, and that path of being alone, how did that make you feel, that self-discovery? Was it a good feeling, a not so good feeling, an unknown, an uncertainty? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I'd actually like to, if it's okay, go back to the rising tide analogy for just a second.
Of course.
Because in my view, I think a rising tide lifts all ships. And you talk about the one dinghy that doesn't rise, and the reason it doesn't rise is because it's got a hole in it, right? Because it's broken. And I really think that people who spout so much negativity do it because they're broken. And, maybe we can help heal them, and maybe we can't. That depends a lot on them, because obviously only we can make that difference. But I just want to put that out there, because that is something I was thinking about.
Yeah, great diamond.
In terms of, ask your question again. I'm so sorry.
Just the journey, because it's also, the book is the main title, but it's also about self-discovery, and getting to that
Right.
self-discovery is not an easy path. And just where you were dealing with grief,
Right.
you were dealing with loss of not only a husband but a mother, and being a care provider for your mother before she passed, a change in career. Kids are off to school learning their own life path. The pandemic. I mean, those are big things. And talk to me about that feeling of the ups and downs of going through the journey of self-discovery, because it's not a straight path.
It's not a straight path, and the biggest thing, and I addressed it in the book, but it was really interesting when I began to experience it really in a significant way in my own journey, which is that some days you don't move forward. Some days you just don't have the energy or the bandwidth to take a step forward. And what I advise, and what I've always advised, is that, just don't let yourself slip back. tread water for a while, because it's so easy to fall apart and so hard to put yourself back together. So just try to maintain it. And as I've gone through my journey, I have found that has been a really powerful tool to help keep me going. I don't know if it works as well for other people or not. I have had a couple people say it does, and I'm sure you've experienced many people who have talked about it. But for me, my journey, as I've progressed, I've had less and less of those moments of needing to pause and just tread water, and more moments of continually moving forward. Because once, it's a body in motion stays in motion, right? Once you get on your journey, once you can get the basics and you can start to like yourself, love yourself, accept who you are, believe in yourself, then it's a snowball effect. It's the snowball going down the mountain, and you just feel more and more empowered and motivated to keep moving forward. It's just getting through those first few steps, those first few weeks or months or even years, trying to regain that sense of purpose and self that I think are the toughest. Having said that, of course, we all face hiccups and setbacks, but I don't know. For me, every time there's a little bump in the road, I just, obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off the goal, right? Just let's learn from this, move on, and keep going. It's like the Bruce Lee, you have to flow like water over the stones. You have to choose your stream, but if you're going to fight that current, you're not going to get anywhere. You just have to let life take you where it needs to take you, because then you will end up where you need to be. And that's what my journey has been like. The big thing is not comparing myself to others, because that is something that is all too easy to do and a really good way to start making you feel bad,
Yeah, and there's a lot of influences out there that they want to be like other people and not be their authentic self. And you're right. Lao Tzu talked about the journey of 1,000 miles begins with that single step forward, right? But we keep moving forward, and sometimes, I remind the listeners that it is not a sprint, that it is actually a marathon. But in the end, we know that the turtle and the hare, who wins the race. It's the slow and steady that does win the race, and I love that. So these shows go by so very quick. I just love the energy. I love the inspiration. Again, thank you for coming on and sharing your journey with us. Your uniqueness of who you are, and if folks want to check this out again, you can go to our social media pages. You can go to Om Times Radio. The write-ups there. You can go to dalsimer.com. What would you like, as we kind of get to the last part of the show here? What do you want to share with the inspired listeners from the book, from your journey? Who inspires you? What inspires you? Let's just take it from there.
My children inspire me. I learn so much from them. They are the talisman that keeps me pointing north, so to speak. And I think the one thing that I would like to impart to your listeners is believe in yourself. Believe that you are worthy and worthwhile. And more importantly, believe that you can achieve your dreams, that you can be happy and successful, where successful is loving who you are, who you're with, and what you're doing. And just to be kind to yourself. We're so quick to be kind and forgiving to others that we forget to grace ourselves that same kind of forgiveness. And also, as you talked about, getting out in nature, I'm fond of saying you have to play the pause in music. That pause, that moment where we stop to re-energize, recharge, and restore is just as important as the notes are to the overall quality of the piece. So we have to make time for resting and recreating, recreation, in addition to the work, so that we can have a whole and balanced life and be who we were meant to be.
Lots of practice the pause, power in patience. And again, if this is resonating with you today, check out the book. It's won multiple awards. Allie has a newsletter that you can get on if you want to just learn more about her journey, or as I like to always say, soul adventure. And in the book, you talk about living the golden rule. And I think in today's society, it's needed more than ever with what's going on, from just global events to war to politics. Live that golden rule. Be kind, be good, be humble. do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And, I always remind my listeners, every time we point a finger out, that one finger is pointed out, but there's also three fingers pointing directly back at us as a reminder that sometimes the cover of the book is not the book itself. And sometimes for even your journey, I'm just thinking about it. Sometimes it comes down to a simple thing of feeding your cat Puma to get out of bed and watch movies. And sometimes that's all it's needed for that day, right?
Yeah. You just got to do what you got to do. And whatever that is, it is okay. It is okay.
Yes, it is okay. What was your favorite part of writing this book for you? What really, if you were to open to the chapter in the book, where would you go?
I think I would go probably right to the end where I say we are the only ones who can define what happiness is for us, because we're all too quick to let others tell us what it means for us to be happy, and that's just not the truth. We are the only ones who can define what happiness is for us.
I love that. Yeah, I really resonated with the Queen Elizabeth II quote: "Grief is the price we pay for love." Right,
Yeah.
and even
So
Muhammad
true.
Ali talked about the being in service is the rent that we pay. Being in service to others, to help others, to teach others, to inspire others. But I'm paraphrasing Muhammad Ali, but he always talked about being in service to others is our rent that we pay while we're here in life, because this is such a temporary construct, this life journey. And for your listeners out there, this too shall pass. So your greatest strength that you can have in this journey of life is how you respond to things and how you don't respond to things. Free will and choice is always a big part of the spiritual path. So, Ali, again, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Do you have any events that you'd like to share with the listening audience if they want to check you out, or did I cover all the bases for you?
Please go to my website and sign up for my newsletter. I'm kind of taking a summer break because my kids are both in and around, and my kids, Jackie Kennedy Onassis said, if you mess up your children, nothing else you do matters. And I have embraced that wholeheartedly. So I'm a little bit taking time off in July and August while they're both around to spend time with them and engage in products. I actually do have a new project that I'm going to be doing with my son. We're going to be announcing in September, so I'm excited for that. But go to my website, sign up for the newsletter. I'm doing a summer recipe series, so it's very lighthearted, and I'll get back to some more meaningful content in the fall. But this is my pause. This is my pause so that I can recharge and rest and restore myself. And I'm enjoying my journey. And like you said, you have to live in the day. And one other thing, Mark, my grandmother used to say, that which doesn't break us makes us stronger. And I feel like that's a nice little gem for people to take as well. You just got to go through it to get through it,
Yeah, and I love that you're practicing the pause. I love that you're taking that time to disconnect, time to reconnect with your children. And you're going on the pause. I just came off the pause out in nature, out in the rainforest. And just rejuvenated, revived, and keeping that vibration high. And as we close, one of the lessons that you offered in your book is, I wish I'd learned 20 years ago, no job is more important than our own well-being or that of those we love. And I find that to be a very, very powerful statement. So again, Ali, thank you so much for coming. Come back and share with us if you have more writings in the future. I'd love to hear from you again, and keep that inspirational going. So again, our special guest today, Ali Dalsimer, talking about her wonderful, wonderful book. And check it out, and we'll see you next time here on Inspired Living. Until then, be kind, be caring, be compassionate, and most importantly, wherever you're at in this world, whatever's going on, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live, and discover that diamond within. We'll see you next time here on Inspired Living.